I was saying, y'all, about Rico from Street Scores, and I feel like with us having a day off of practice, it is time to basically review everything that went down in practice, but we're going to do it in the form of some stock ups and stock downs. We're going to do 5 stock ups and 5 stock downs. Now, let me go ahead and preface all of this with the fact that it is very early. We have yet to have even shoulder pads put on, any real contact and things like that. We're not diving deep into the playbooks just yet and all of that type of stuff. So again, I'm just trying to preface this, get you mentally prepared for the fact that some of the things that we're talking about and breaking down today may not necessarily be true by the time we get to week 1. Maybe some people are overhyped right now, so maybe some people are underhyped. Once we put the pads on, once we start like actually dealing with real competition, like say the joint practices with the Ravens, or when we get into preseason games, and once we finally get into the regular season, things may be completely different in certain ways. So again, we're going to take a look at 5 stock ups, 5 stock downs. Well, remember, some of these stock ups, maybe they're a little overhyped, and then maybe some of these stock downs, maybe where they're blown out a little out of proportion, and things may change once we finally get into some real game-like scenarios. Again, starting with at least putting on helmets and pads and actually hitting people. So I can't wait for that. And then, of course, this is just the training camp week 1 for the 2023 Washington Commanders training camp. So I'm probably going to try to do this every week if I can, so make sure y'all stay tuned for that. And again, as you can see in the title, I posed the question, is this team already better than the 2022 team already? I'm very optimistic. The schedule's a little bit harder, but I think this team is better. We're going to talk about why in these stock ups and stock downs. And of course, when it comes to stock ups and stock downs, we're not talking about things like Terry McLaurin is a top 8 receiver. We know that. That stock's already too expensive for you to buy. We're talking about stocks that may be low that you should buy now before they skyrocket, and stocks that may be medium or high, and maybe we had a little bit of higher expectations. Maybe we were hoping for it to kick up a little bit sooner, but they're not quite there just yet, or they've been disappointing, they're delayed or whatever. And so it's a stock that you have currently that you may want to sell now before it goes down based on the current trend of where it's headed. So that's how stocks work. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button, and definitely make sure you stiff arm the subscription button too as well, because make sure you stay tuned for all of the Commanders reports that I'm coming out with, all of the coverage, all of the daily stuff. As you've been seeing, I've been coming out with like 3 videos a day. It may become 4 depending on what's going on. Keep y'all updated. Everything training camp, I'm uploading the practice clips for y'all to see. I'm breaking down and analyzing every position group from each practice, good or bad. I'm still working on film sessions for the rookie class, all kinds of content, man. And any breaking news updates to come out, I'm trying to do that. And I have so many video topics I need to do, but I'm just backed up by the fact that we have training camp going on. So man, make sure you stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so let's start with the stock ups. We'll start on a high note. Number 1 has to be Howell's development. Now, he's not all the way there just yet. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying he's Pat Mahomes out here, or even like as good as like maybe even a Derek Carr just yet. Now, he can make some throws that Derek Carr can never dream of making already. He has the ceiling, but it's like the consistency is being able to scan the field, go through your progressions quicker and stuff like that. But still, based on what we saw him even just last year in that Cowboys game where he looked really good, he looks even better than that already, and it's really not even close. Like, it's almost night and day as far as like technique. Again, his ability to go through progressions, he's making quicker decisions, he's getting the ball out of his hands quicker, he's hitting people in stride just like he was doing in that Cowboys game, but now it's more consistent, and he's just been an overall just better player. He's further ahead in his development than I expected at this point. Like, if you would have asked me 4 months ago, where would Sam Howell be July 30th after a week of training camp, I would have never have guessed that he would have been as far ahead as he is in the offense. First of all, just learning Eric Bieniemy's offense. He has 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years. He played at UNC 2 years ago, and then he had Scott Turner last year, and now he's going into Eric Bieniemy's offense this year. Like, he's had to learn 3 completely different offenses in a 3-year span, and the fact that he's picked up Eric Bieniemy's like this is very encouraging. I'm very optimistic about Sam Howell and the future that he has for this team at quarterback. I truly believe he can be our franchise quarterback, and to have him on a rookie deal, I mean, we've already talked talked about this, but quarterbacks on a rookie deal are your biggest Super Bowl window. It allows you to allocate far more resources and cap space and money into the rest of the roster, make the rest of the roster around the quarterback great. And if you have a great quarterback on a cheap rookie deal, your team, basically the sky's the limit. That's how the Eagles basically just did what they did last year. Now they're having to pay Jalen Hurts and all of these guys, and they're still really talented, but it's just hard to keep a team together. That's why they lost certain players like the defensive line and safeties, important starters and things like that, because when money gets tight after you pay that quarterback, it gets a little weird. So the fact that Sam Howell is further ahead in his development is great, because we only have like 3 more years of his contract, because we drafted him in the 5th round, so we don't have that 5th year option to pick up. So we have 3 more years of Sam Howell, and if he can immediately be great this upcoming season, this 2023 season, that's going to be huge, because then we can get 3 great years rather than this year being like a developmental, right or wrong, make a lot of mistakes, but we're just going to ride the Sam Howell train, and it's like a developmental year, sets us back as a team 1 year, then we only have 2 potential great years. I'm glad that it's looking like that we'll get a at least good year already. Again, in training camp, his footwork is beautiful, the releases was already nice, the arm strength was already nice, but it's the fact that, he's going through his progressions. He's understanding like the defense and the coverages. Like when he sees this, go to this guy. And it helps too to have such a really smart offensive coordinator that's literally designing an offense around your skill set and making it easier for you. And then, of course, having as many weapons as he has. He has this ridiculous receiving group that's always open. He has the safety blanket at tight ends. That's a young quarterback's best friend. And then when we get to real action, he's going to have a dominant run game as well, I believe. The biggest struggle right now is offensive line, but he's showing another part of his development. When the defensive line is dominating the O-line, he's doing a great job of climbing the pocket, maneuvering around, trying to improvise, running, making throws on the run and stuff like that. He's not one of those guys that pressure comes, he just tucks the ball away and immediately tries to run. He's running, looking to throw the ball and make a play, and he's already done that several times within just this first week of training camp. One time hit Jahan Dotson in stride after running with the ball to escape pressure, and Jahan Dotson was able to even get yards after catch, and this was off of like 1 foot, hit in stride. It was just so beautiful. So Sam Howell has certain things you can't teach. Now he's starting to learn the things and get better at and more consistent with the things that you can teach. So again, that's why I'm ridiculously optimistic about Sam Howell. I am definitely on the Sam Howell train already. Again, he's not a finished product just yet. I wouldn't crown him a top 15 quarterback just yet, but based off of what I've seen just in his first week and just projecting his trajectory moving forward, I think he has top 15 quarterback potential for sure. I think even if you want to say that it's not just him, it's the offensive coordinator and the weapons around him, whatever. But I think he's going to play like a top 15 quarterback, whether he is individually or not. And then moving on, Eric Bieniemy's impact is already huge. I talked about in a recent camp breakdown that Eric Bieniemy is already changing the offense in a major way. The fact that they run more screens, but most importantly, don't only just run more screens, but every screen that they run is more effective and more efficient. The way that he's coaching it up, the timing with everything, the pacing, how guys get out in space and things like that. We have more mobility on the offensive line. Our tight ends are getting out there. The running backs are patient and have great vision, good hands. The quarterback is able to throw it where it needs to be, to where the running back doesn't have to stop their stride and momentum. It's just so many little details that Eric Bieniemy is ironing out because he expects perfection. It's not, oh, that was good enough, we can move on. No, I want it perfect before we move to the next play. And I'm going to yell at you and scream at you until you do. And that's, speaking of that, that's the other impact as well. We're going to come back to the football and the genius side of things, but he's yelling at everybody. There was one day where he had to yell at Terry McLaurin like twice, and I know Terry McLaurin and all of these star players are probably taken aback a little bit, like, wow, I'm like the star of the team. I'm one of the faces of the franchise, and this coach is getting on me as if I'm a fourth stringer. And that's the way that Eric Bieniemy needs to coach these guys. It keeps them humble and make sure that they're always expecting greatness out of themselves, perfection out of themselves, and that's only going to make them better players. I love it. He's gotten on Curtis Samuel. He's gotten on literally like the faces of the franchise, like, you need to be better, you need to move faster, stop being lazy, all of that type of stuff. I don't care what you've done. I don't care if now finally most of the NFL believes you are a top 8 wide receiver in the NFL. We don't care about that. We do not. You need to go out there and work just as hard as the guy that's struggling to make this roster on the bubble, on the cusp of the roster right now. All y'all need to be playing with the same level of enthusiasm, energy, effort, all of that. Absolutely love that. So that impact is ridiculous. Just expect to perfect. I mean, he kicks the starting offense off the field at times. When they make enough mistakes in a row, he literally kicks them off the field, yells at them, and is like, all right, give me some people that want to play, that actually want to do things the right way. And he'll bring out the second team offense and say, first team offense, y'all just go sit down and watch for a little while, because clearly y'all don't want to be great right now. I absolutely love that type of stuff, man. But then going back to the X's and O's, we already spoke on the screens, but also this offense looks like it has a lot more RPOs, which is great. And that's kind of like a compliment to both Bieniemy and Sam Howell, because Bieniemy can want to run as many RPOs as he wants, but if Sam Howell wasn't as mobile and didn't have as much of a deep, strong arm threat that can open things up underneath, because you have to keep safeties back in case Sam Howell's throwing a deep bomb, it wouldn't work anyway. Even no matter how smart Eric Bieniemy is, if he had a statue of quarterback, we wouldn't be able to run these RPOs with a straight face. Maybe we could do the same thing like with Kirk Cousins, where we pull it out extremely rarely and then he keeps it and the defense literally doesn't expect it at all. But Sam Howell's mobile enough to where like defense is going to be expecting it, but can they stop it? I doubt it. And that's going to be the fun part. And then of course, Eric Bieniemy is installing a lot more deep shots in the offense as well. But again, that's another compliment to Sam Howell as well. I mean, we're taking shots like crazy. Bieniemy Brown, who I've said for years since we drafted him, a lot of us have been saying it's not just a Rico thing, but Bieniemy Brown's only going to be unlocked once we start to take more deep shots. We saw at that one game where Carson Wentz finally took some deep shots with him and he was catching everything and it was beautiful. And and it's just like, why couldn't we do that before? Why can't we do that more often moving forward? We just literally stopped trying after a while, and I'm just glad that Eric Bieniemy's not giving up on it. And that's literally part of the offense, deep shots to not only just the entire receiving group alone, but Bieniemy Brown specifically. We need to utilize his skill set, and then gaining confidence and making plays down the field is helping him learn how to run more of the route tree, because Bieniemy Brown really up until this offseason has only known one route, and that's just a 9 route. Just run forward. Don't change any directions. Don't make any breaks. Just run forward. That's it. Don't do nothing else. And it's really cool that now that he's making plays deep down the field consistently enough, he's gaining some momentum. He's gaining some confidence, and now he's learning the rest of the route tree and even making plays underneath and becoming a more complete receiver. That's another reason that Eric Bieniemy's impact is huge. The offense is designed to bring out the best in everybody. Eric Bieniemy said it when he first got here, like, he's going to get the ball in the hands of his best playmakers. No longer are the days where Terry McLaurin is used as a distraction in Scott Turner's offense, because Terry McLaurin is clearly the best player. So we were going into games like, okay, the defense is going to game plan against stopping this guy, so we're not even going to look his way a lot of the time. We're going to throw it to other people, target other people, because we're just trying to overthink it and outthink ourselves and basically just checkmate ourselves in the process. Eric Bieniemy's like, no, Terry McLaurin's a baller. He's going to get the ball a lot. Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, and then Bieniemy Brown, he likes catching deep passes. We're gonna throw him, and it looks like it in the offense. So Eric Bieniemy, man, huge impact already, not only just on the X's and O's sides, but the motivation. He's out here like signing stuff for the fans after practice. Don't quote me, I don't remember Scott Turner doing those type of things. I love the fact that Eric Bieniemy is a man of the people as well. It's absolutely beautiful. He's not just an offensive coordinator. He's an assistant head coach for a reason. He brings that much of an impact to the team. Not just an offensive mind, but just a completely different culture change, basically, to this entire team. And then also the best D-line in football. That's my next stock up, man. It definitely looks like it. And I know it's hard to say stock up from here because it's already obvious that we have some of the best defensive linemen in football. But I think it's safe to say that this year is going to be a huge breakout year for Chase Young and Montez Sweat from what I've seen so far, especially like Chase Young, who's finally starting to learn some technique. I think this will be the best defensive line in football, like literally number one. Not one of. I'm not saying one of the best or a great D-line. I'm talking about the great D-line, the number one D-line. That's what I'm saying to buy stock in. Again, we all know that the D-line is great. Yeah, I mean, that stock's high. But as far as being the best defensive line in football, not a lot of people believe that. I'm pretty sure even a lot of Commanders fans aren't too sure about buying into that hype just yet. But I'm ready to, based off of what I've already seen and heard about Chase Young with his improved technique. And then, like I've already explained in previous videos and live streams, the secondary being way better is going to make this defensive line way better. Because coverage sacks Commanders, Washington football team, the Redskins anytime recently, coverage sacks. Getting sacks because the secondary has covered so well that the quarterback has had to hold on to the ball, and now the defensive line has a chance to get there with some second and third moves. When has that happened? So now that the secondary looks like it should be way better going into this year from previous years, the fact that our defensive line is going to start getting coverage sacks is going to make them look even better, at the very least statistically and production-wise. I mean, Montez Sweat, we always talk about him being one step away. He's like the king of pressures. At some point in last year, he was leading the NFL in pressures, but he didn't have a lot of sacks. I mean, how do you lead the NFL in pressures but don't even have double-digit sacks? I mean, just Mr. One Step Away. You know where that one step away is going to come into play, where it's going to be completely erased, is that hesitation from the quarterback, that small second of hesitation, or having to scan the field a little bit longer because the secondary is locking up everything going on back there, which is going to turn that Montez Sweat one step away to Montez Sweat getting a sack, probably a strip sack and things like that. That's why I truly believe this defensive line will be the best in the NFL, not just because Chase Young and Montez Sweat are dominant, not because I believe KJ Henry is a really good edge rusher as depth. I think he could start on some teams' defensive lines. I'm really excited about him. And then Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne are the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL. We're going to run a lot of 5 defensive linemen. It looks like, based on what we've done so far in practices, we're probably going to run 5 defensive linemen more this year than even we did last year, which is insane. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that, speaking of interior defensive line, Bieniemy Mathis is healthy. He's supposed to be the double team eater, but then he's also good enough, and I think he has a little bit more pass rush potential than he gets credit for. But remember, again, last year, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne were playing like 90% of snaps some games. That's ridiculous. Defensive linemen should never do that, ever. That's a linebacker's job. That's a cornerback's job. Maybe some of the safeties, but a defensive lineman should never get into the 90% of snaps in games, ever. That should never happen. So another reason why this defensive line should be better this upcoming season is because they're going to be fresher. They're going to be a little bit healthier. They're not going to be gassed, because with Bieniemy Mathis a part of the rotation along with John Ridgeway, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne will be able to take more rest. Same thing with Chase Young and Montez Sweat. James Smith-Williams is a dependable backup who started for us the majority of last year. And you add KJ Henry here, who I think is going to end up even being better than James Smith-Williams. Chase Young and Montez Sweat will be able to rest more often. So when they're on the field, they'll be better versions of themselves. They'll be more efficient on a per snap basis. I think this defensive line just has so much potential. I think it's going to be the best defensive line in football, but not only just because of the pure talent we have in the defensive line and the depth, but also the fact that the secondary is improved. And then speaking of that, my next stock up, obviously, the secondary's improvement. I'm telling y'all, a lot of people, when I'm saying that this receiving group and this defensive line have been arguably the best position groups on this team, like probably the past year, and then going into this season as well, I think the secondary is going to be one of those ones you can have an argument about as well. I think those are going to be our top 3 competing. I think running back may be drastically underrated as well. I think this running back room is going to be ridiculous. But I think when we're arguing about what's the best position group on this team, I think defensive line, wide receiver, and I think you got to go throw secondary in there as well, bro. I mean, we got faster, we got more explosive, we got longer. Literally with our secondary, it's just about health. But again, with Cameron Curl, they're moving them to a more like just pure strong safety situation type of role. No longer playing as much star Buffalo nickel, like playing against the run. They want him in coverage more often to keep him healthy. Ron Rivera said that like very early this year, like before free agency and the draft type of thing. So that's like a clear like focus that Jack Del Ron Rivera had for Cameron Curl to keep him healthier. He's going to be in coverage more often. Derek Forrest is only getting better and better. I mean, we have so many guys that are just freak athletes like Derek Forrest, Percy Butler, Tariq Castro-Fields, just pure speed, pure athleticism, pure just made in a labness type of stuff. And as they're getting older, they're maturing, they're developing, they're catching up and getting more equipped to the NFL mentally. Once the game starts to slow down for them, the sky's the limit for all of those guys. They have the body type, they have the speed, they have the athleticism, the burst, the quickness. It's all about just learning football and being more proactive rather than reactive, and I'm seeing that from all of those guys. Derek Forrest looks really good. He had a great blitz to force an interception from Sam Howell to Emmanuel Forbes for a pick six, what would have been a pick six in practice yesterday. You're having Percy Butler out here making plays, getting interceptions and things like that. You're out here with My boy Quan Martin that we just drafted, he's a versatile piece that's just like, we talk about positional flex, he may be one of those guys that has the most. If we're talking about on this team, we had to crown a positional flex king on this team. Quan Martin's name is in the top 5 already, even as a rookie. He's a guy that I think he should start at slot corner for us, but even if he doesn't play there the majority of the time, he can be our free safety. He can be a strong safety. He can be the star Buffalo nickel. He can even play he has some experience playing outside corner as well. Like literally anywhere in the secondary, Quan Martin can play there. And one of the main reasons of that is, first of all, IQ, awareness, being more proactive and reactive, but also he's explosive. He had one of the highest verticals out of a cornerback since RAS has been tracking that statistic. He was like literally like one of the top 3 or the best ever or something like that. Like he's ridiculously explosive. I feel like that isn't talked about enough. His change of direction skills, the way he can, mirror receivers and route running. He's such a smart player. He can dominate his zone as well and diagnose plays. This secondary is so ridiculous. And then all of that versatility with guys like Kendall Fuller, Cameron Curl, Derek Forrest, Quan Martin, all of these guys. Even Bieniemy St. Juste is going to play slot and outside corner for us, with Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes being primarily like outside corners. It's that the hesitation I was talking about from the quarterback that's going to allow the defensive line to get there more often. Man, I mean, just imagine a play pre-snap. The defense, the secondary is set a certain way, but because of the versatility, post-snap, everybody changes. And now this guy is able to do these other things, so he's going to do that this play, and then the next play he's going to do something completely different out of the same pre-snap formation. That's going to force quarterbacks and offensive coordinators to be like, I don't know what the secondary is doing any given play, so you may want to take a little bit more time to scan the field. You may not want to be too irrational because that's going to cause interceptions, but then when you hesitate even the slightest, the defensive line is coming to you. I'm telling you. And then again, just like the defensive line is going to be great because of the secondary is going to be great because of the defensive line. I mean, what deep shots are you going to try to take when a defensive line is going to be this dominant, especially when we're running more 5 defensive linemen? Because if John Ridgeway and Fadarian Mathis are eating double teams, that means Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and Deron Payne are at very best getting single teamed. Or some of them, somebody may come unblocked in a certain situation. It's just like you don't even have the time to develop a deep shot, and this secondary is going to be able to be more aggressive because of the defensive line they're playing behind and things like that. I'm expecting big things out of the secondary, and most importantly, man, the addition of Emmanuel Forbes. First of all, Bieniemy St. Juste is only getting better, which is just ridiculous because he shut down AJ Brown last year. I mean, he just has a special skill set that nobody else in the secondary has. That's like a secret weapon we have. But then Emmanuel Forbes, bro, he's strapping everything down. He's even forcing Sam Howell to look the other way. There were times so far in these first few days and first week of training camp where Sam Howell scanned in the field. He's like, oh, Terry McLaurin, I want to throw it to him, but Emmanuel Forbes is all over him. Same thing with Logan Thomas. And the fact that that's like, he has that wide range of ability to cover those guys. He can cover the smaller, shifty, faster receiver, route running guy like Terry McLaurin, which is kind of like what we're going to have to deal with Devonta Smith, Brandon Cooks. All of these guys are in the division. And then also the Logan Thomas 6'6" tight end that has a ridiculous catch radius. The length shows there from Emmanuel Forbes, the intelligence and the length. That's why he's able to lock somebody down like that. And so when it comes to bigger receivers in the division like a CeeDee Lamb and all of the tight ends we got to go against with Dallas Goedert and all of those guys, that's where our boy Emmanuel Forbes comes in as well. It just seems like he's so versatile. He's a pure outside corner, but he can cover any of the types of receivers receiving targets out there that you have to deal with. And then of course Kendall Fuller is just one of the smartest corners in the NFL, and he's just been out here breaking on routes constantly so far in training camp. Secondary is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't even dive as deep as I should have into the safety group, but just know this secondary is ridiculous. And then also lastly, because I'm gonna kind of cheat and give you 6 stock ups because we gotta do this one extra honorable mention. But the last one I'm gonna talk about as a pure 5 stock ups is the running back room's versatility, man. This room is crazy. I mean, what made me really think about this is the fact that like people are starting to notice that Chris Rodriguez is a really good run blocking running back and he's in the kick return competition right now. And we're expecting him his primary role to be one of the guys that eats up a lot of the carries from Brian Robinson, so that you can keep Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson a little bit fresher in games, taking less hits. Chris Rodriguez is going to be the one that takes a lot of those Jonathan Williams carries from last year, and even to some of Antonio Gibson's carries from last year and things like that. I think Antonio Gibson's going to get the ball more often overall, but I think it's going to be slightly less carries and just way more targets in the screen game and in the passing game and things like that. But man, I mean, and he's like at the back of the roster as far as that goes. Then of course your leaders are Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, I mean, if Eric Bieniemy can do what he did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and all these gadget guys, Kadarius Toney, Isaiah Pacheco, who he drafted in the 7th round, none of those guys are the athlete that an Antonio Gibson is. Antonio Gibson is just as big and strong and as heavy as Brian Robinson, but runs a sub 4.4, like a 4.39, 4.3, something like that. That's ridiculous. Like every NFL roster doesn't have an Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson is a very unique specimen of an athlete. Like not many teams in the NFL have Antonio Gibsons just sitting around ready to be used and unlocked by a smart offensive mind like an Eric Bieniemy. And then I mean, remember, he was a wide receiver coming to the NFL, so him being able to be like a receiver to literally like pre-snap motion, go out wide and literally run a route, that's not hard. That's not a hard ask of him, because he literally was a receiver that's been learning to develop into a running back. So if you ask him to play more receiver, he's like, this is natural to me. This is like going back to my old days. This is second nature to me. Don't worry about it. Let's do it. And then Brian Robinson, I mean, first of all, the fact that last year we never really got his best because the man got shot twice. Like, come on, dog. He even said it himself. How he feels this year compared to last year is night and day. And a lot of us even noticed it looking back at his Alabama tape and then going back and also watching some of his Commanders tape last year. You're like, he doesn't even have the same explosion he had at Alabama. Again, understandably, after being shot. And it's just like, he's going to be way better just because of that. He's finally 100% healthy and 100% explosive going into a season. He's going to be faster, quicker, more explosive, more decisive, and all of that type of stuff. And then on top of that, this man has had an amazing catch every day of training camp so far. I'm telling you, him going on that trip to Florida with the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and some of the tight ends has been a huge help. I mean, he had hands with Alabama. I just felt like he was underutilized in that category. I'm glad, though, as a Georgia Bulldog fan, I'm glad they didn't throw him the ball more, because I think he's always had the potential to be a good receiving back. Alabama just didn't target him much. And then last year we targeted him a little bit, but now he's showing one-handed catches left and right. Every practice, contested catches through contact, one-handed catch on the sideline. Like, yo, this is insane. And then y'all know I'm a big Jared Patterson fan, just off of the fact that he's just so different from anything an NFL team is used to facing. Again, just long story short, I consider him a secret weapon because he's so small that it's almost impossible for linebackers to find him behind the offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and all of that type of stuff. And by the time you see him, the hole's open. He's such a decisive runner and bursty, quick. He's gone. It's too late. He's already running by you when you're a linebacker. It's like, what do I do? And if you don't have a Jared Patterson on your team throughout training camp and you're practicing against that all summer, you're gaining that muscle memory, that you're learning how to decipher and just kind of get a sense of where the running back is when they're that small. If you're not practicing for that and against that all summer, that week you have before you play us is not enough time to prepare for a Jared Patterson type of running back. I'm telling you, it catches defenses off guard. That's why it seems like every time we throw Jared Patterson out there, he's breaking off runs that other guys weren't getting. That's literally because guys behind the defensive line, the guys on the second level, third level, literally just can't find them until it's too late. So I'm just really excited about this running back rooms. And of course, Jared Patterson is also competing for the kick return job and can also catch passes out of the backfield. This running back room is insane, bro. And then lastly, for the stock ups, again, like an honorable mention, Bieniemy Brown has been balling. I mean, I already talked about him somewhat with the deep shots, and now he's starting to learn the route tree, but man, I mean, if you go back and look at all of my training camp breakdowns, we've had to talk about Bieniemy Brown, I believe, every day, making some amazing plays, and it's usually more than one. I don't think there's been any day where he's had just one amazing play. It's been like two or more against anybody, even like Emmanuel Forbes, who's been at times clamping up like our best receivers. Bieniemy Brown's been able to get something off on him at times. It doesn't matter who's covering him. Bieniemy Brown's been making plays, and that connection he has with Sam Howell, we used to like hope that connection will be strong. We used to kind of joke about it like, oh man, we got Bieniemy Brown. What if we draft Sam Howell next year and that connection goes? Then we drafted Sam Howell. We was like, oh, wait till Sam Howell starts. We'll see how he's able to target Bieniemy Brown deep down the field and see how that connection goes. In this offseason, we're finally actually starting to see that connection really like materialize. Like it's a real thing. Like him and Sam Howell are just on this wavelength that nobody else is. Now, again, Logan Thomas, involuntary OTAs and mandatory minicamps was Sam Howell's favorite target because he was his most dependable target. That's what a tight end's supposed to be. A young quarterback's best friend, a safety blanket. When in doubt, nobody else is open. Let me just dump it off to him real quick. But Bieniemy Brown, so far in training camp, I don't know, man. A lot of Sam Howell's best highlights and clips we've seen so far coming out of training camp have mostly been in Bieniemy. It's ridiculous. Again, the fact that he's learning how to become a more complete receiver, a more well-rounded receiver, a guy that doesn't only just one run route, that doesn't only win one route. Let's emphasize that. I mean, he may run a slant, he may run a comeback, he may run other routes on the route tree, but he doesn't succeed at them. He doesn't win. Now he's starting to win at other routes where he has to break a route inside, make a double move and things like that. He's no longer only winning from deep shots. Because again, you gotta remember, he's not the fastest guy. He ran like a 4.46 something. Like Terry McLaurin is faster than him, but he just has a great ability to like deep track the ball, to over the shoulder catches and things like that. He catches people off guard with his underrated speed and things like that at times. He's not like the most equipped deep shot guy. Like he's not Deshaun Jackson fast, he's not McCole Hardman, Tyreek Hill fast and things like that, but he makes it work. And so with him not having that elite blinding speed, you're gonna have to learn how to win underneath to force DBs to play you a little bit closer because you're beating them underneath. And now what you really want to do, which is beat them deep, it's easier to do that now with them playing up on you a little bit rather than sitting back like, well, the only thing you want to do is beat me deep, so let me just stop you from doing that. Now DBs have to play them honestly a little bit more, and that's going to open everything up for him. So the sky's the limit for Bieniemy Brown, especially since he's linked back up with this college quarterback that brought the best out of him. And same thing, Sam Howell was at his best throwing to Bieniemy Brown. Bieniemy Brown was at his best when Sam Howell was throwing on the ball, and it's about to be a magical connection. I'm telling y'all, the fact that Bieniemy Brown is our fourth best receiver shows that we should have one of the best receiving groups in the NFL. Now let's go to the stock downs. And again, I'm not just trying to get on these people and just act like they're terrible, but you'll see these are very specific. So starting with the first one, stock down, Khaleke Hudson starting, because in mandatory minicamps it was at a point where they were saying Khaleke Hudson was our best linebacker. Of course, Jamin Davis was hurt. Cody Barton was still relatively new, trying to learn Jack Del Rio's defense. He was a free agent we just signed like a few weeks before that. So it's just like, Khaleke Hudson kind of had the advantage where he was the only healthy linebacker that was here the year at least before 4 weeks ago, a few weeks ago before mandatory minicamps, and isn't named David Mayo, who's slower than me. So it was kind of like he was linebacker one almost by default, but at the same time he was balling out. He looked really good. And so the fact that Cody Barton has surpassed him just based off of just play experience, of the ability to run like pure Mike linebacker, to be the one with the green dot on the helmet and hear calls from Jack Del Rio, get everybody straight, call the defense and stuff. Jamin Davis is our most athletic and just purely our best linebacker, and now that he's fully healthy, he's back. That just shows that Khaleke Hudson didn't get worse. It's just that our linebacker group is just that much more improved now, going from mandatory minicamps to training camp. Cody Barton got better. Jamin Davis got healthy. Again, Khaleke Hudson didn't get worse. Those two guys surpassed them on the depth chart. And that means we at the very least have three solid linebackers. They were very comfortable. Jack Del Rio even said it himself. We don't miss Jamin Davis because Khaleke Hudson is balling right now in mandatory minicamps. And again, the fact that now Khaleke Hudson is our third linebacker shows that we just have solid linebacker play right now. I'm not going to say great. I'm not going to sit here and try to hype up this linebacker group. Of course, I'm just like a lot of y'all that would love to bring in another veteran linebacker that can compete. But man, we're cool. I mean, at most we're going to probably have is two linebackers on the field, a lot of snaps. I mean, a lot of times last year, we were more likely to have one linebacker on the field than three. So as long as we have three solid linebackers, part of a two-man rotation most of the time, I think we're straight to go. I really do. And if we're going to run five defensive linemen more often anyway, and we're usually going to have five DBs out there anyway, that means only one linebacker's of spot available. So it's going to be Cody Barton and Jamin Davis. Khaleke Hudson is part of the rotation as a solid linebacker. It feels like a deep linebacker group. It doesn't look like it on paper, but the way that we're going to use our linebackers, don't worry about it. Then Sadiq, but again, Khalid Hudson as a starter, that was kind of a stock that was, gaining a little momentum heading into training camp, and then it plummeted. So go ahead and sell that stock if you had any, because it's only going to get worse. Cody Barton and Jamin Davis, I don't believe they're going to lose their starting jobs. Then Sadiq Charles starting. I don't know. It's looking a little shaky. I don't know about that one. He's still our starting left guard as of right now. And that stock is pretty high because he's been our starting left guard all offseason so far. But as of yesterday, Chris Paul finally started to get some starting snaps at left guard. They were like, all right, Sadiq Charles has been doing his thing. He's been on point. We love what we see. Let's give Chris Paul a chance. And then Chris Paul looked really good. So now we're not sure. So this is one of those stocks where I'm not going to say that Sadiq Charles is going to be surpassed. He's going to get benched for Chris Paul. But if you have that Sadiq Charles stock, you might want to be a little nervous about it because Chris Paul can't. Don't forget what Chris Paul looked like in that final game against the Cowboys last year. He easily looked like a franchise starting left guard. They gave Sadiq Charles the starting job to start the offseason, and he hasn't necessarily lost it. But Chris Paul is showing some good stuff out there. So if you had Sadiq Charles starting as our left guard entering week 1, that stock's a little shaky right now, so it's a slight stock down. And then also Nick Gates starting, just simply because of his injury. And you know how injuries go, man. It just takes that one guy, especially if it's a third-round rookie we just drafted, and Ricky Strongberg. It just takes for him to get enough opportunities while Nick Gates is hurt. And he hobbled. I'm not sure if it was that bad. We still haven't gotten an official update on. I feel like we would have gotten like an update after practice if it was something really, really bad. So it may not have been that bad, but it was enough for Ricky Strongberg to believe. I think he got some first team snaps, and if he was able to show what he can do on the first team, and that's your third round rookie compared to Nick Gates, who you paid very little money, you prefer if Ricky Strongberg can start at center for you, Nick Gates be the backup. That's like the preferred method. That's the best case scenario. So if Ricky Strongberg is able to take those snaps away from Nick Gates while Nick Gates is a little hurt, it can get a little ugly for Nick Gates starting, man, because he may lose that job and never get it back type of thing. So, and you prefer Nick Gates as the backup to Ricky Strongberg because Ricky Strongberg is pure center. That's it. Nick Gates can play left guard, center, or right guard if there's an injury to either three. So again, just like Wes Schweitzer, even though Nick Gates is more of a center, Wes Schweitzer is more of a guard. Same thing stands. If there's an injury, Nick Gates is your guy that you can call on, and you prefer him as the backup rather than the starter if Ricky Strongberg is good enough to handle it. And you never know, man. Nick Gates a little bit of hurt. Maybe Ricky Strongberg has had enough opportunities to show that, but we don't know just yet. We'll have to see when we practice again. And then lastly, stock down on the trust in the starting kicker, because this is, I knew when we signed Michael Badgley and he was part of the 90-man roster, and we literally released quarterback Tim Day-Murray. We released a quarterback for a kicker in training camp. I know it's a 90-man roster, it's not a 53-man roster, but still, that's pretty crazy. You bring that guy in, you're kind of like, okay, this is a real competition, but I was still kind of like, yeah, maybe Joey Sly still has the edge in this, but clearly this is a even training camp competition right now. At the end of practice yesterday, Ron Rivera had the crowd hype up to simulate like a real in-game situation, 10,000 fans screaming and things like that, and they had an honest kicking competition, like literally back and forth between Joey Sly and Michael Badgley. Both of them made all of their kicks. Right now, the only thing separating the two is the fact that Joey Sly is way better at kickoffs than Michael Badgley. And then also, as far as how they compare as far as field goal kick wise, Michael Badgley is the more consistent kicker, 100% from extra point in his career, and makes pretty much anything below 50 yards. He's Mr. Automatic when that comes in. But again, he's a terrible kicker. Joey Sly is the guy that if you need a 50 plus yarder, he's easily your guy. Michael Badgley is horrible at long kicks. He's like 5 of 13 on 50 plus yarders. And then again, he's terrible at kickoffs. So ideally, you hope Joey Sly wins the job, because if he can become more consistent, he's better than Michael Badgley. You can teach Joey Sly and work on him becoming more consistent. You can't teach Michael Badgley to just get a stronger leg that he's never had. So ideally, you hope Joey Sly wins it. But right now, stock down on the trust in the starting kicker, because it's clearly like an even kicking competition the way that they're going about it right now. Again, I think Joey Sly has a slight lead just purely based off of kickoffs right now and ceiling. But yeah, man, they clearly do not trust him. It's not like Joey Sly's out there as the number one kicker. Michael Badgley gets the occasional kick. kicks. No, they're getting the exact same amount of kicks every day in practice. So yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Let me know how you feel about these stock ups and stock downs. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there any parts of the team that I should have added in the stock ups or the stock downs that you felt like I should have talked about? Let me know all of that in the comment section. I've been trying to read and reply to every comment every chance I get. So man, make sure you get in the comments and stay engaged, man, because I'm lurking. You never know when I'm looking and replying. I'm really trying to like reply to literally every single one when I get the time. And then of course, man, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release these informative and opinionated videos. Again, constant updates. I'm already working on another video that's going to come out tonight. So man, make sure y'all stay tuned because it's infinite content and I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Let me see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.